Right, Murray, you're on.
Alright, good evening all of you. A lot of you guys I know from years gone by, and Jacaranda, I've been to you guys a couple of times, so thanks again for the opportunity to come and do a presentation. This is an interesting fly. I had a client, a guy by the name of Cameron, this guy, you must see him on WhatsApp. I don't think I've had as many WhatsApps in a space of 5 minutes from this guy. Sending me pictures. This is what he wants, and this is how it must. The disco shrimp. Now, just to show you what it is, it's basically a combination of foam, sequence, bit of dubbing. It's not a difficult fly to tie. It's quite simple, and what he fishes for with it is actually in the kai mouth. He does the breeder with it, various other places, and he catches small kingfish. He's taken grunter on it and various other species, and there's a couple of color versions that he wanted and that he requested. So I started exploring this disco shrimp, and it's an American pattern from what I can tell. There's a black version and then a tan version. And those were the three sort of colors that he wanted. What you can see, there's a sequence up front here. The foam is 4mm. It's quite a thick foam. The first prototypes we tied, we did it with the good old 2mm foam, and it just wasn't quite buoyant enough, because this fly, it shimmies and shakes on the surface, so it's a surface type pattern. I don't know if you guys ever, or you remember a couple of months back, article on taking grunter on the surface. Have some of you read about it? I'm sure you've heard about it. Okay, I was in the mag. This lure here, okay, don't throw stones at me. I know it's a lure, it's not a fly, but this particular lure is what they call a Z claw. This exact lure, this size, this was given to me by a guy named Ruben, who lives in East London. And over a 4.5 year period, they took over 4,000 grunter on the surface with this lure. And how they did that, they were tagging grunter. They stopped doing it because they just felt they'd got what they needed and had done enough research. But this exact lure had, and they thought it was only successful in certain systems, but it seemed to have worked in most systems. So the guys have started experimenting with a lot more surface flies for grunter. So this is another area that you can explore with this pattern. But my experience with it is, and what I've seen pictures of fish taken, is mainly kingfish and leary, small garrick, and that type of thing. Alright, so just to get started, the hook we're using, it's an old-fashioned hook. Reason being, I'm pretty sure you can get long shank, sort of more chemically sharpened hooks, but this is a good old-fashioned mustard 34011, which is fine for our local coastline and smaller species. I'd be a little hesitant with this hook to target anything of size. Okay, I've seen these hooks open, but for our local coast, it's a perfect hook for the job. Now, what I've got on front here is a sequence. Well, I've actually put two on just to give it a little bit more strength. On the table here, you'll see it's obviously got as any sequence does have, it's got a cup face. You want to thread it on with the cup face facing the eye of the hook, just to give it a little bit more action. Put on two. You'll probably have to debarb the hook. If you don't want to do that, you'd have to heat up a needle with a lighter and just burn the hole a little bigger to get that sequence on. So basically, it's a long shank 34011. We've put a sequence on, and and the sequence is not a new component in fly tying. I don't know how many of you have used sequence before. Yeah, you can use it on woolly buggers, you can use it on bait fish patterns. It pushes water. I mean, you put it on the front of a woolly bugger, it just creates a lot more action. Probably not allowed in the competitive circuit. Marcel? Yes. Allowed? Okay. Okay. Alright, your components, just to go through it quickly, I've kind of prepared it as best I can. You'll have a section of the 4mm foam cut for you, right length. You'll have some rubber legs. Please just take two like that. You only need four. Well, you need two on each side. Just grab two, the full length of the material. I've got a couple of strands of black crystal flash. Tippet material, 2X, which is going to be used for the ribbing. Some dubbing, The eyes, which we make ourselves. I mean, it's this you can make these eyes quite easily by using UV fly paint, Loon's UV paint, a bit of epoxy and black marker. That's how we make these little prawn eyes. What I've got for you guys, purely because it's what I had available in the factory, is just some red amnesia, which makes an awesome prawn eye. And my Tyre just burnt them and marked them with a black marking pen. It's not really, I mean, you can play around with this pattern. There's no hard and fast rules to exactly what you put into it. And I don't know if I mentioned a bit of rabbit. And just talking about that, up at the front of the shrimp pattern, you could use Arctic fox, you can use rabbit, you can use craft fur. I mean, if some of you want to play around with some craft fur, please, by all means. There's no real rules to it. The critical things about this is not overdressing the fly, putting too much heavy material with a heavy hook and a thin foam on the top, because that's not going. It's not going to be a buoyant fly anymore. It's going to sink, which would probably also work. In fact, we tie a fly, and in the raffle pack, you'll find two prawn patterns that are done with a very thin foam, which are tied not to float but to sink very slowly. So a combination of foam and weight and materials, you can create a very sort of neutral buoyancy type shrimp pattern. So play around with it. I really just want to show you what this disco shrimp's all about. The carapers. I really just cut to a point. The thing here is, what we did notice is, don't make it too short. You'll see how it's well extended past the eye. Particularly, this is going to be the heaviest part of your hook here. So you want most of your buoyancy up front. That's what we discovered. And I tested these things in the pool ad nauseum just to get it right for him. And this thing on the water is really cool. I mean, you can drift it, you can tweak it, fish it, and just shimmies and shakes. And I guess that's why they call it the disco shrimp. You'll also find on the table here, I've cut bits of Velcro for you guys. This is just going to be used to do some teasing and so on. Right, let's get tying. Talking too much. Alright, just start your thread up. Being a long shank hook, I'm not in retail anymore, but good for thread sales. Alright, what we want to do first off is just tie a bit of the rabbit on the underside. And like I say, you can play around here with various materials. There's no hard and fast rules. The under length, you want to just tie that a little bit shorter than what we're going to do on top. So we'll just put a bit of that underneath. Swing that over. Don't worry about the waist too much. And then we're going to take another bunch of the rabbit, and we'll tie that a little bit longer. Okay, that just creates a little bit of a... So all of your sort of shrimp patterns, I'd recommend doing that. If you're going to do any sort of shrimp pattern, something slightly shorter underneath and a little bit longer, it just helps with that profile that you're looking for. Okay, the next thing to go in will be the eyes. Now, if you're working with smaller patterns, and it's quite heavy mono, this is 30 pound. Sometimes with bigger shrimps you might use 40 pound. If you want to just sort of make it a little more easier to work with, you can squash the mono. And we do this a lot, you know, on weed guards for the largemouth flies. That area where it goes through the eye of the hook, by squashing that mono just in that area where, do you know what I'm talking about? It really helps with tying it in. Alright, so we're going to tie in the eyes. One on that side. Just measure up before you start squashing. And then one on this side. Try and get them roughly the same length, but I don't think any fish minds a slightly crippled prawn. Okay, that's your eyes in. You can use a heated needle if you want to position them a little better, but I think that's fine. We'll just right. Just cut that mono off. All right. Okay, next thing you want to do with this pattern, if you look at it, whichever version you're tying, we've got our sort of front end in. You could put hackle claws into this if you like. The only advice I can give you is don't overdress it and not compensate with the correct amount of foam. Otherwise, it's kind of gonna defeat the object. Okay, a bit of crystal flash. I've just taken 4 strands. I'll tie those in quite long. And then I'll just leave 2 long and cut the others a little bit shorter like that, just to give you sort of antenna look. If you want, and you want to add a bit more flash, you can fold those back and just cut those as well. There we go. All right. Okay, now you'll find in the samples, if you have a look at them, I had a little bit of a hot spot in here. Well, you can hardly see it, it's got buried. If you wanted, you could have put a bit of orange rabbit in here, or you could dub now with a bright orange. You could do it here, you could do it at the back. By all means, play around. But what you want to do first off is put a bit of dubbing. You want to just create a little bit of a, I don't want to call it a thorax area, but we need to, otherwise if you tie in your tippet right here to do the ribbing of this fly, it's going to get a little bit tricky. And guess what? I forgot something. What did I forget?
Legs.
Yeah, ball. Let's just tie these legs in. Okay, we'll just put that one on that side. You can just fold it in a loop like that for now. Decide on how long you want it, because we can cut those just now. It just keeps them out of the way and from springing all over the place. That's about long enough. I'll just leave that for now. Okay, back where we were. Right. Let's create a bit of dubbing. That's fine. Now why I did that before I tie in the length of tippet, as I said, you've got some 2x tippet. It's just going to make starting the winding of the foam into the fly a lot more easier than trying to do it from the very front. It also creates a better looking fly. Just make sure you tie this tippet in really well. I've done this before. You go and you dub this whole thing and you go to pull that mono really tight and out it comes is like shit. Okay, I've got to start again. So just make sure you tie that tippet in really nice and tightly. Check it actually. Yeah, that's not going to go anywhere.
Slide your face back.
I beg your pardon?
Slide your face back.
Yeah. This way.
No.
Other way.
That's it.
Got it.
Come on. Yeah.
Okay, and just apply some dubbing to the thread. Okay, so it's really meat and potatoes fly tying this. There's nothing to be quite liberal with this dubbing. You know, by the time we put this tippet through it and a bit of super glue and whatever we're going to use, then you can be quite aggressive with teasing it out, because that's the last thing we want to do. And you just want to create a slight taper as well. You could do it in a dubbing loop if you like. You could use a brush here. There's a host of materials you can use. I just find the dubbing, when you wind the tippet through, when the foam is secured in place, you tend to bind down a lot of the material. So I find it easier just to basically create your basically dub body and then tease it out afterwards. Much easier. Just want to fatten it up a bit there. This is the boring part. That's why I only tie samples. Now I admire my fly tyers. I take my hats off to those guys to sit there tying 30, 40, 50, 100 of the same thing.
You got guys and women as well?
I got one lady and the rest are guys, yeah. But we're training a few more tyers at the moment, so I want to get it to about 12. I don't want to get bigger than that, not necessary. Right, get close to that sequence. Pretty close. Just have a look, you've got a basic tapered profile. Sorry, this is the boring part of the fly. Okay, done. Just ram that sequence right up against the eye of the hook. Okay, and there you have it. Right, foam. That's coming in next. Just want to basically go, remember what I said, you want it fairly long past the eye of the hook. Then just take your scissors and try and do it in one cut if you can, otherwise you're going to run out of length. Generally I don't get it in one cut. Should have got lucky. Okay, there we go. Just basically creating a bit of a point. Make sure that foam's well past the eyes. Just tie it in here. By the way, your thread, if you're working with 8/0 thread, you're going to frustrate yourself. You want to use minimum of 6/0 and preferably a 3/0 with a fly like this, alright? Okay, what I usually do, I left it behind, sorry, some super glue on the top. It's not critical, but it does help. So just put some super glue under the foam or on top of the dub body. Center it and just start pulling down. With 2x tippet you can really give it a good pull. And that just creates a segmentation of what you're trying to achieve there. Right. Make sure you secure. Mono and thread very slippery on each other, so just be, like I say, meat and potatoes fly tying. This is not a size 22 Zac or Rab. It's get in there, get down and give it horns. Okay, and then just finish that off. You see I've left a bit of the foam. You want that length so that the foam also aids in that action. I mean, it's like a flipper type action, you know. It's just gonna. And you must go and Google catching grunter on the surface. I don't know if any of you have ever done that. Quite amazing what you'll find out there, right? And then this piece of Velcro. Velcro is very kind as a teasing agent because it doesn't tear ribbing wires and gentle material, so you can be very aggressive with it. And that's it. You've got the legs and whatever you want. So if you're using very fine wire on a small nymph or a large nymph for that matter, you're not going to break it with some of the wire. This is a tool that's got Velcro built into it. You can put it on an ice cream stick if you want to look Lani, but just a piece of Velcro like it. The last thing we want to do is just come in and cut the legs. You can fine tune them. I don't know, I like that length. That's it. It's a disco shrimp.
Very good.
Thank you. I beg your pardon? I've never fished it. I've tied it for a guy who fishes it a lot for small kingies, Garrick. The reason I brought this whole story into it is I reckon if you start tying these in a white version, I don't see why a grunter not going to take it on the surface as well. I kid you not, this Ruben, do any of you guys know Ruben? Herman, do you know Ruben? No.
What's his last name, Larry?
I was just trying to think, man. I know it well.
Not Torres.
No, it's not Ruben Torres. No. He's a very low-key guy. They did a tagging program on Grunter over 4 years. And literally, yeah, they fished various systems. They thought it was only effective swart corpse, but they used it in other areas. The interesting thing was the Grunter usually ate it while it was static, sitting there. This thing walks a dog. The whole thing about this lure is it doesn't sit like that. It sits level when it's at rest. They found that if it, some of those Zara spooks and whatever, they sit like bum down. This thing sits like this. It's got a rattle. And this exact size, white in color, was the number one, and absolutely hammered fish on it. Yeah, terrible thing, but yeah, works. So I would play around. The guys are getting Grunter on the top. Yeah. Me personally, Dries, never fished this fly. I tie a lot of flies I don't fish. I just get report backs of what. I don't get time to get on the water all the time.